Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and today I'm going to be using this sketchbook from Scrapbook Generation that only has 3x4 photos. I did pull out the Bella Boulevard Let's Scrapbook collection, but I'm also going to be using some of the paper that was specifically printed for this particular crop. This crop was back in February of 2021, so we were still practicing a lot of the social distancing elements. But I actually flew to Arizona and I was an instructor in this class. I was super excited that I was asked to be an instructor. I taught multiple classes at this event. And because I flew to Arizona, I had to really plan out what I was going to be working on. So the ladies that put this crop on actually had paper printed from Photoplay, which I didn't even know that that was a thing. So we got just a couple of sheets of paper in our thank you for coming swag bag type thing. The paper included this super cute flamingo paper, some pink paper with white polka dots, and on the back was black with white polka dots, and then this stripe paper that included black, pink, green on a white background. So of course I am going to be adding some strips. I pulled in the flamingo paper. I decided to cut it so that it was specifically one row of flamingos. The sketch called for the strips to be 1 inch, but the flamingo paper is just a hair over 1 inch. From the Bella Boulevard collection, I pulled in this paper that has all of the different tools on it, and I wanted to pull specifically the green tape runner because there was green in that stripe paper, but there really wasn't any other green in the papers that I was going to be using. And then I also pulled in the camera paper as well as the paper that had all types of different scissors on it. This particular sketch calls for 6 landscape photos on the right hand side and 1 portrait photo on the right. So there's a grid of the 6 photos and then that 1 photo that's kind of sticking out. So what I decided to do was take a bunch of the photos that we had taken in front of the photo prop that they had set up, as well as the group shots that we got. And then there was 1 photo that somebody had posted in the Facebook group that they created where you can see me over on the far left hand side, and that is in the photo in the upper left hand side. I first thought I was going to use the black polka dotted paper to mat it, but I didn't like the way that it looked, so I went ahead and pulled out a white sheet of paper. I do use this technique a lot where I put my photos down on the background sheet of paper that I plan to use, and then using my layering guides, I cut out the edge around the photos, and then that basically leaves a big hole in my paper. But I knew that I was going to use this pink polka dotted paper and it was going to cover up a majority of that big hole, and I'm just a hair short. I do plan to add the 1/4 inch strip, but I kind of wish I would have gone over just a little bit so that that pink paper covered it entirely. So once I get the pink paper down and the 1/4 inch strip down, I'll turn the paper over and add the washi tape. I did make sure that the washi tape covered that seam between the 1/4 inch strip and that pink paper. Once I get the right hand side of the base down, I then start to work on my strips of paper. I cut the paper down to 11 inches because I knew that I wanted to add the banner notch to the top and bottom of the strips of paper. That does make the paper end up being about 10.5 inches once the notches are cut into it. I realized I was 1 paper short, and of course I had to bring in the flamingos again. So I do end up having 4 different strips with the flamingos, but there are 2 different strips of the flamingos, if that makes any sense. The way that the strips of flamingos were, it was every other row was exactly the same. Even though I have 4, the flamingos are facing different directions. So once I figure out all of the strips that I know that I have enough strips, then I go ahead and pull out my banner punch. I did pick this up from Stampin' Up, and I love this banner punch. I use it quite frequently. I have the smaller one as well as the larger one. Once I get all of the banner pieces down, then I'm going to go ahead and start working on the left-hand side of the layout. I first start by adding that pink paper with the white polka dots, and I am adding that so that it lines up with the pink with the white polka dots on the right hand side. And then I go ahead and add the 1/4 inch strip in that striped paper as well. On the right hand side of the layout, I'm going to add just one strip of the Flamingo paper, and then on the left hand side, I'm going to add several of the strips using the paper that they created for us, as well as the Bella Boulevard Let's Create paper. I do go ahead and ink up all of the edges since a lot of the paper does have a white background and I'm putting it on white paper, so it just sets it apart just a little bit. Of course, I'm going to use my T-screw ruler to make sure that all of my strips are straight. I did win this Bella Boulevard collection from Instagram. I do want to give them a shout out, and I appreciate them sending me this collection. For some reason, I had forgotten about this one paper that had all of the different tools on it, and so once I got all the paper down, I realized, hey wait, I'm missing a sheet, and I was able to find it on my desk. I just somehow overlooked it when I was cutting out the banner notches. So I cut out the banner notch, ink it all up, and then get it down. I decided that I also wanted to ink up the photo grid as well before I adhered that down. I did decide to put that large photo mat flat to the layout. I'm just going to use my T-square ruler to ensure that it is kind of in the center. It doesn't have to be perfect to me, but what I end up doing is I will measure the entire piece that I want. So for this particular one, the photo block, and then I subtract that number from 12 and then divide by 2. So for this particular photo block, it was 9.5 inches. When I subtract 9.5 from 12, that gives me 2.5. And then dividing by that 2, that gives me 1.25. So I know that my photo block needs to be 1.25 inches from the bottom of the layout. So you can kind of see that there where I'm measuring it. And I don't feel like it has to be exact, but just kind of somewhere in that ballpark. The sketch itself calls for 4 3x4 size photos and cards on the left-hand side, but I had way too many photos, so I forgoed the cards altogether and just added photos to this entire layout. So I was able to get a total of 11 photos on this layout, all of them being 3x4, which I feel like that's a nice size for having photos on a layout, especially with all of the other designs that I have. I did decide to add the black paper with the white polka dots as a background to all of the photos that were individual. So I had the white for the grid photos, but then the blacks with the polka dots for all the other photos. So I'm just using my layering guides to line up and make sure that I have a perfect edge around it. I do have this linked below, so if you'd like to pick them up. There is a little bit of a learning curve. You do have to kind of run your fingernail underneath the photo itself to lift it up just a little bit, because the layering guides have a lip, and you need that lift to be able to have the guide fall where it needs to so that you're able to cut it out. So sometimes it does take me a couple of times to run my fingernail on the side of the photo to make sure that I have that lift. The photo on the right is another like group photo, and I do go ahead and add fun foam behind that to give it a little bit of dimension next to all of those other 6 photos, because there's lots of busyness to it. I did pull out my glue press and add that to the back of the fun foam, but I did forget to ink my edges, so I had to pull it up for that. And then also adding my stamping block to it just to give it a little bit of weight to make sure that it stays down. For the left-hand side of the layout, I do decide to put all of those photos flat, and I am staggering them, kind of following the sketch a little bit, but also making sure that I had enough space for the title piece that they also included in our little swag bag. You can see that the title piece is huge, but I love it because now I don't have to add a title to it. I also used my button that I had from the crop that says that I was an instructor. I also thought about including the button over there on the far right. It just has the name of the crop and then my name, but I felt like it was kind of redundant. Plus, there was so much flamingos on this particular layout, so I was trying to also bring in more of the scrapbooking elements as well. I did use this tool that I have that's from the Bind It All, and it's basically just to cut metals. I just used it to snip off the back of the button piece so that it didn't cause holes in my papers or layouts once I get them in my albums. I, of course, am going to stitch on this layout, and this is another one that I added the embellishments down before I added the stitching, which I know better than doing that. but sometimes I get so excited about getting everything down that I forget about the stitching. Luckily, I did not have anything that was too bulky. Everything was kind of flat to the layout, so it made it a little bit easier to put the stitching down. I did have to pull up one of the photos to make sure that I could get the holes underneath that particular photo, but it was pretty simple to do. This ruler and my poker tool is linked below if you would like to pick them up. You can purchase both of them on Amazon. Please know that they are affiliate links, so I do get a small commission. So if you would like to support me without any additional cost to you, you can use those affiliate links below. And I also have affiliate links to scrapbook.com for the same purpose. So if you are purchasing from scrapbook.com, even if it's not something that I have talked about, if you will click that link below, I will get a little bit of commission, and it does not cost you anything. So it's a way for you to support me so that I can continue to bring content to you guys and new collection to you guys without costing you anything at all, but helping me out quite a bit. So I do pull out my thread in an olive green for the paper that has all of the tools on it, a yellow for the stripe paper, a blue for the paper with the scissors, and then over on the far right hand side, I just decided to go ahead and add just a straight stitch to the white part. There was quite a bit of space over there on the far right, and I felt like the pink just kind of added to it. So you can see here that I am showing you all of the stitching that I did. I try to remember to do this because of course, I'm doing my stitching offline. Sometimes I remember to do it and sometimes I just completely forget, but there was a close-up of all the stitching that I did for this particular layout. That pink polka dotted paper was just a hair short of being 12 inches, so I did go ahead and just paper shave my white cardstock so that it all lined up. And then anytime that I add buttons to my layout, I just go ahead and add a couple of pieces of fun foam. I think I ended up having to add 2 pieces to this particular button. I just add them right to each other and then add some liquid adhesive to the fun foam itself. And when I do add that, I make sure that I put my stamping block down on it so that it has some weight, so that it really gives it an opportunity to stick to the layout. Now I'm going to pull out the embellishment pieces that come with the Bella Boulevard Let's Scrapbook collection because I wanted to add more scrapbooking elements. The paper that came with it was very Flamingo based, which I love because the title of the crop was Flocking Fabulous Flamingo Extravaganza, which is a very long name, but I wanted to add some embellishment pieces. So I'm really just kind of looking through all of the embellishments, seeing what can work. I just really start with a pile. So that pile on the far right is the piles that are maybes. Some things are like, I absolutely want to add those there. And so those get placeholders on the sketch itself. This is really how I start to pick out my embellishments and start to walk through my clusters, is really just starting out with the collection. I haven't had a chance to put these particular embellishments on the page protectors. I definitely enjoy that more than looking through it because I feel like I have to go through the same things over and over. So I do end up adding the picture perfect tag over there because I have that strip of cameras. Most of that strip got covered up with the photos and the title and my instructor button. So I wanted to bring that camera over to the right so that it really does pull those pieces of paper together. I then added a green heart, and I do put that up on fun foam. I feel like when you're building your clusters, it's important that you have everything touching. And this is my own personal rule. I know some people don't believe that that's the rule, but I feel like if everything is touching something else in the cluster, then it really ties the cluster together, as well as having dimension. So you're having flat pieces, you have pieces that are up on fun foam, you have pieces that are different texture. You can see there that I added that yellow flower, and that has a different texture than the green heart and the tag, because both of those are paper, whereas the yellow flower is a enamel piece. And then I also added a tiny little blue heart. Our swag bag also included these like pink gemstones, so I did cover up the whole tag in the Picture Perfect tag, as well as adding 2 of the pink gemstones over to the far left hand side. I felt like I needed one more embellishment piece, but I didn't want to do pink, so I did go ahead and pull out my blue color box and added a blue gemstone as well. And then that is it for this layout. I hope that you guys enjoyed this very pink flamingo based layout. I had so much fun at this crop, and even though it was back in 2011, I'm super glad that I'm finally able to get this layout complete. If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.